All right, so electron beam welding, huh? Sounds kind of intense. Let's see what RoleCatcher has to say about it.
Yeah, it's not your typical 9 to 5, that's for sure.
Definitely not. Okay, so before we dive into the nitty-gritty, can you give us a quick rundown of what electron beam welding actually is?
Sure. So basically, imagine you're fusing metal together. But instead of using like a traditional welding torch, you're using this super precise beam of electrons.
Electrons, like
Yeah,
the things that spin around atoms.
exactly. And these electrons, they're packed with so much energy that when they hit the metal, it creates this really intense heat.
Okay, I'm starting to see where the intense part comes in.
Yeah, right. And that heat is what melts the metal and fuses the pieces together.
So it's kind of like a high-tech laser beam, but with electrons?
You got it. It's all about precision.
Precision. How precise are we
I
talking?
mean, we're talking microscopic levels of accuracy here.
Wow.
The electron beam can be focused down to a tiny, tiny point, so you can create these incredibly fine welds.
Wow. I bet that comes in handy for, like, really delicate stuff.
Absolutely. Think aerospace components, medical devices, anything where even the tiniest imperfection could be a huge problem.
Makes sense. So RoleCatcher mentions that it's the electron beam welders who are setting up and operating these high precision machines. What's that like on a daily basis? What does a typical day look like for someone in this role?
Well, you're definitely not going to be stuck behind a desk all day, that's for sure.
More of a hands-on type of gig?
Oh, yeah, big time. Imagine, you walk into this manufacturing facility, it might be a bit loud, a bit of that industrial smell in the air. You've got safety gear, of course, because you're dealing with, high heat machinery.
Sounds kind of intense.
It can be, definitely keeps you on your toes.
I bet. And what about the programming aspect? RoleCatcher mentioned something about CNC controllers.
Right, right. So CNC, that stands for Computer Numerical Control. Basically, it's all about programming a computer to control the electron beam welding machine.
Okay, so it's not just about the hands-on welding skills. There's a tech side to it, too.
That's exactly it. You got to be comfortable with both. Like 1 minute, you might be programming a super complex welding sequence, and the next, you're monitoring gauges, adjusting settings on the machine. It's a real blend of skills.
Sounds like you need a good mix of, like, artistry and technical know-how.
100%. A good electron beam welder is part artist, part engineer.
That's fascinating. So RoleCatcher highlights both the pros and cons of this career path. Let's start with the positives. What are some of the most rewarding aspects of this kind of work? So we've talked about the challenges, but what about the rewards? What makes this career path so appealing to some people?
Well, I think for a lot of folks, it's that feeling of accomplishment. Like you're creating something incredibly precise and technically demanding. It's not just welding, it's like pushing the boundaries of what's possible with metal.
Yeah, I bet it's got to be super satisfying to step back and look at a finished product and be like, I made that happen.
Right. And RoleCatcher points out that this specialization, it often comes with some pretty sweet perks too, like competitive salaries, strong growth potential, that kind of thing.
So there's definitely room to move up the ladder if you're ambitious.
Hmm.
What does that career trajectory look like from entry level to seasoned electron beam welder?
Well, often it starts with apprenticeships or internships. Get that hands-on experience under the wing of some more experienced
So it's
welders.
like you're learning a trade, but with a high-tech twist.
Exactly. And then as you gain experience, you might move on to operating machines, independently troubleshooting issues, even collaborating with engineers to develop new welding procedures.
Wow. So there's a lot of room for growth and specialization within the field.
Absolutely. Some electron beam welders, they go on to lead teams, manage entire projects, or specialize in quality control, making sure those welds meet the highest standards.
So really making sure those microscopic welds are up to snuff.
Exactly. And speaking of the future of this field, RoleCatcher mentioned that the metal fabrication industry in general, it's expected to see some solid growth. Why is that? And what does it mean for aspiring electron beam welders?
Yeah. Is this a career with staying power?
Looks promising. RoleCatcher points to the fact that industries like aerospace biomedical engineering, they're booming. And they rely heavily on electron beam welding, for that precision. So that suggests a growing demand for skilled professionals who can deliver that level of accuracy.
That's great news for anyone considering this career path. So we've got job security, but RoleCatcher also really emphasizes the importance of continuous learning in this field. Why is that so crucial, especially in an age of increasing automation?
Well, think about it. Technology is always evolving, right? The tools and techniques used in electron beam welding, they're going to keep advancing too. So welders need to be adaptable. They need to be eager to learn those new technologies and techniques to stay ahead of the game.
So it's not a learn it once and you're good kind of deal.
Nope. This is a field where you've got to keep learning, keep evolving, and that might involve seeking out advanced certifications, attending industry conferences, maybe even pursuing additional education to deepen your knowledge base.
So you've always got to be sharpening those skills.
Exactly. And that really came through in the example profiles RoleCatcher provided, for different career stages. You can just sense that dedication and passion these folks have for what they do, and that commitment to staying at the forefront of the field.
It's inspiring to see how they've turned this passion for precision and technology into successful careers. Speaking of which, we've talked about the training and continuous learning, but what about actually landing that first job? What does RoleCatcher suggest for someone trying to break into the field of electron beam welding? So how does someone even start? Like, what's step one for getting into this field?
Well, RoleCatcher says a strong foundation is key, and they're talking both education and hands-on experience.
So it's not enough to just, read about it in a book. You got to
Right.
get your hands dirty.
Exactly. They suggest looking for internships or apprenticeships, at companies that specialize in electron beam welding.
Ah, so you can learn the ropes from the pros.
Yeah, get that real-world experience. It's one thing to read about it, but it's totally different when you're actually feeling that heat from the electron beam.
Totally. Nothing like a bit of on-the-job training, right?
Exactly. And for folks who are in degree programs, RoleCatcher recommends, seeking out projects that are related to electron beam welding, so you can apply what you're learning in class to real-world scenarios.
It's all about making those connections, bridging the gap between theory and practice.
Exactly. And then, as you move up the ladder, certifications can be a big plus. RoleCatcher highlights a few key ones, like the Certified Welding Engineer, that's CWE, or the Certified Welding Inspector, CWI.
So it's kind of like a way of proving your skills to potential employers.
Exactly. Those credentials, they show that you're serious about your craft, that you've got the knowledge and the skills to get the job done right.
Makes sense. So we've covered a lot of ground here, from the basics of electron beam welding all the way to, career advancement. But before we wrap up, I got to ask, what does the future hold for this field? What are some of the things on the horizon that could really shake things up?
Oh, man, that's where things get really interesting. RoleCatcher talks about this trend of automation and robotics in electron beam welding.
Okay, so robots doing the welding.
Pretty much. Imagine robotic arms doing these super intricate welds with insane precision and speed.
Whoa, that's next level stuff.
It is. And they talk about advanced sensors, too,
Yeah.
that can monitor and adjust the welding process in real time. It's like the future is now, man.
That's wild. It really drives home that point about continuous learning, doesn't it? Got to keep evolving with the tech.
No doubt. To thrive in this field, you got to be adaptable, open to learning new things.
So, yeah, if you're thinking about a career in electron beam welding, it's not just about today's tech. It's about being ready for whatever comes next.
Absolutely. Always be learning, always be growing. That's the key.
Well said.
Mhm.
So there you have it, folks. A deep dive into the world of electron beam welding with a little help from our friends at RoleCatcher.
We've covered the ins and outs of the job, the pros and cons, the career path, and even got a glimpse into the future.
And who knows, maybe we've even inspired a few future electron beam welders out there.
Hopefully. It's a fascinating field, that's for sure.
If you're curious to learn more, definitely check out RoleCatcher's platform. They've got tons of resources, interview tips, salary data, industry trends, you name it.
It's a goldmine of information for anyone serious about exploring this career path.
Absolutely. But for now, we're going to wrap things up here. Until next time, keep those minds curious and keep diving deep.